So, my dear students, today we start a new section, and it is chapter 86. And chapter 86 is going to discuss a few topics, and we'll first of all hear where is the chapter summary? Hold on, everybody. There it is. Okay. So this chapter is entitled Arjuna Kidnaps Subhadra and Krishna Blesses His Devotees. So let's begin by reciting some prayers. Om Apavitra Pavitro Va Sarva Avastang Gatopi Va StMoritz Pundarika Akshang Sabhaya Abhyantara Shuchi Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnana Anjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militang Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukhaṁ karoti vachalang Panggung langhayate girim Yat kripa tamahang vande Sri Gurung dinataranam Yat kripa tamahang vande Parama ananda madhavam Trinadapi sunichena Tarar iva sahishnuna Amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari Hare Nama Hare Nama Hare Nama eva kevalam Kalau nastyeva 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 gatir anyata Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So here is chapter 86, the chapter summary. This chapter describes how Arjuna kidnapped Subhadra and how Lord Krishna went to Mithila to bless his devotees, King Bahulashva and the Brahmana Shrutadev. When King Parikshit desired to learn about the marriage of his grandmother, Subhadra Devi, Shukadeva Goswami said, Once, while touring on pilgrimage, Arjuna heard that Lord Baladev intended to give the hand of his sister Subhadra to Duryodhana in marriage. Wanting to kidnap Subhadra and marry her himself, Arjuna disguised himself as a sannyasi renunciant and went to Dwaraka. Arjuna's disguise was so effective that neither Balaram nor any other resident of Dwaraka could recognize Arjuna. Rather, they all showed Arjuna the respect due to a Vaishnava mendicant. In this way, the 4 months of the rainy season passed. Then, one day, Arjuna received an invitation to dine at Lord Balaram's home. There, Arjuna caught sight of Subhadra and was immediately overwhelmed with desire for her. Subhadra also desired to have Arjuna as her husband, and thus Subhadra would glance back at Arjuna shyly. A few days later, Subhadra left the palace to participate in a Ratha Yatra chariot festival. Taking this opportunity, Arjuna abducted Subhadra and defeated all the Yadavas who tried to stop him. Taking this opportunity, let's go back. I made a mistake. Hold on. Taking this opportunity, Arjuna abducted Subhadra and defeated the Yadavas who tried to stop him. At first, Lord Balaram was greatly angered, and he was angry that Arjuna had done this. But when Lord Sri Krishna and other family members pacified him, Balaram became joyful and sent the bride and groom off with the elaborate wedding gifts. So that's part 1 of this chapter, and there are 2 more parts to this chapter. Next part. There was a Brahmana devotee of Krishna named Srutadev, who lived in the city of Mithila. By the will of Providence, Srutadev could earn only barely enough to keep him and his family alive. Still, Srutadev was always satisfied and spent all his time executing religious duties. There is also another devotee in Mithila whose name was King Bahulashva, and he was also a great devotee of Lord Krishna. A member of the dynasty in which King Janaka had appeared, Bahulashva ruled over the whole province of Videha, and yet Bahulashva remained as detached from material wealth as the Brahmin Srutadev. Thus, pleased with the devotional attitude of both these great souls, Lord Krishna went on his chariot to Mithila just to visit these 2 devotees, and he took Narada and several other learned sages along with him. The people of Mithila greeted Krishna and his saintly entourage with great delight. Bearing various gifts for Krishna, the people of Mithila bowed down and offered obeisances to Krishna and the sages. Then Bahulashva and Srutadev both stepped forward and respectfully requested Krishna to visit their homes. In order to satisfy both of them, Krishna expanded himself and went to each of their homes simultaneously. Bahulashva and Srutadev each worshiped Krishna suitably, offering prayers, washing Krishna's feet, and then sprinkling themselves and all their family members with the wash water. Lord Krishna then praised the sages who were with him and glorified Brahmanas in general. Krishna also imparted instructions to his hosts concerning bhakti or devotional service. Understanding these instructions, both Srutadev and Bahulashva honored the sages and Lord Sri Krishna with single-minded devotion. Then Lord Krishna returned to Dwaraka. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhya eva cha patitanang pavanebhyo. Krishna book students, Namo Namaha. Took a little leeway there. You get the idea. All right, so let's hear the story of how Arjuna kidnaps Subhadra. After hearing this incident, King Parikshit became more inquisitive to hear about Krishna and his pastimes. And thus Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami how his grandmother Subhadra was kidnapped by his grandfather Arjuna at the instigation of Lord Krishna. King Parikshit was very much eager to learn about his grandfather Arjuna's kidnapping and marrying his grandmother Subhadra. Thus, Shukadev began narrating the story as follows. Once upon a time, your grandfather Arjuna, the great hero, was visiting several holy places of pilgrimage. And while thus traveling all over, Arjuna happened to come to Prabhasa Kshetra. In Prabhasa Kshetra, Arjuna heard the news that Lord Balaram was negotiating the marriage of Subhadra, the daughter of Arjuna's maternal uncle, Vasudeva. Although her father, Vasudeva, and her brother, Krishna, were not in agreement with her, Balaram was in favor of marrying Subhadra to Duryodhana. Arjuna, however, desired to gain the hand of Subhadra for himself. As Arjuna thought of Subhadra and her beauty, Arjuna became more and more captivated with the idea of marrying Subhadra. With a plan in mind, Arjuna dressed himself to look like a Vaishnava sannyasi, carrying a tridanda in his hand. Mayavadi sannyasis take only one danda or one rod, whereas Vaishnava sannyasis take three danda or three rods. The three rods or tridanda indicate that a Vaishnava sannyasi vows to render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his body, mind, and words. The system of Tridanda Sannyas has been in existence for a long time, and Vaishnava Sannyasis are known as Tridandis, or sometimes Tridandi Swamis or Tridandi Goswamis. Sannyasis are generally meant to travel all over the country for preaching work. But during the 4 months of the rainy season in India, roughly from September through December, the sannyasis do not travel, but take shelter in one place and remain there without moving. This non-movement of the sannyasi is called Chaturmasya Vrata. When a sannyasi stays in a place for 4 months, the local inhabitants of that place take advantage of his presence to become spiritually advanced. Arjuna, in the dress of a Tridandi sannyasi, remained in the city of Dwaraka for 4 months, and he devised a plan whereby he could get Subhadra as his wife. The inhabitants of Dwaraka, as well as Lord Balaram himself, could not recognize the sannyasi to be Arjuna. Therefore, all of them offered their respects and obeisances to this sannyasi without knowing the actual situation. One day, Lord Balaram invited this particular sannyasi to lunch at his home. Balaramaji very respectfully offered this sannyasi all kinds of palatable dishes, and the so-called sannyasi was eating sumptuously. And while eating at the home of Balaramaji, Arjuna was simply looking over the beautiful Subhadra, who was very enchanting even to great heroes and kings. Out of love for her, Arjuna's eyes brightened, and he began to see Subhadra with glittering eyes. Arjuna decided that somehow or other he would achieve Subhadra as his wife. and Arjuna's mind became agitated on account of this strong desire. Arjuna, the grandfather of Maharaj Parikshit, was himself extraordinarily beautiful, and his beautiful bodily structure was very much attractive to Subhadra. Subhadra also decided within her mind that she would accept only Arjuna as her husband. Acting like a simple girl, Subhadra was smiling with great pleasure, looking at Arjuna. Thus, Arjuna also became more and more attracted by Subhadra. In this way, Subhadra dedicated herself to Arjuna, and Arjuna resolved to marry Subhadra by any means. Arjuna then became absorbed 24 hours a day in the thought of how he could get Subhadra as his wife. Arjuna was afflicted with the thought of getting Subhadra, and Arjuna had not a moment's peace of mind. Once upon a time, Subhadra, seated on a chariot, came out of the palace fort to see the gods in the temple. Arjuna thus took this opportunity, and with the permission of Vasudeva and Devaki, Arjuna kidnapped Subhadra. After getting on Subhadra's chariot, Arjuna prepared himself for a good fight. Taking up his bow and holding off with his arrows the Yadava soldiers who were ordered to check him, Arjuna took Subhadra away. And while Subhadra was being thus kidnapped by Arjuna, her relatives and family members began to cry. But still, Arjuna took Subhadra just as a lion takes his share and then departs. When it was disclosed to Balaram that this so-called sannyasi was actually Arjuna, and that Arjuna had planned such a device simply to take away Subhadra, and that Arjuna had actually taken Subhadra, Balaram became very angry. Just as the waves of the ocean become agitated on a full moon day, Balaram became greatly disturbed. At the same time, Lord Krishna was in favor of Arjuna. Therefore, along with other members of the family, Krishna tried to pacify Balaram by falling at his feet and begging Balaram to pardon Arjuna. Lord Balaram was then convinced that Subhadra was actually attached to Arjuna, and so Balaram became pleased to know that Subhadra wanted Arjuna as her husband. The matter was settled, and in order to please the newly married couple, Lord Balaram arranged to send a dowry consisting of an abundance of riches, elephants, chariots, horses, servants, and maidservants. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya. In the opinion of Srila Sridhar Swami, King Parikshit's question here follows from the previous narration, because Arjuna's winning the hand of Subhadra was just as a difficult a feat as Lord Krishna retrieving the sons of Devaki from the realm of death. Indeed, Lord Balaram himself opposed Subhadra's marriage to Arjuna. So Arjuna's plan for obtaining Subhadra as his wife may have seemed unconventional, but Arjuna was not acting without encouragement. In fact, Lord Krishna was Arjuna's prime co-conspirator. And in Dwaraka, most of the family members of the royal family, especially Vasudeva, were unhappy about giving their favorite daughter to Duryodhana. And from the explanation of Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti, it is understood that Arjuna, in his sannyasi role, had just finished Chaturmasya, the 4-month vows of the rainy season, and could now again accept general invitations from householders. Thus, no one would have suspected any unusual motive in this sannyasi visiting Lord Balaram at this time. But as soon as she saw him, Subhadra knew that Arjuna was no sannyasi, but rather Arjuna was her destined consort. Even while being honored by Lord Balaram, Arjuna was too distracted to appreciate Balaram's gracious hospitality. Arjuna's distraction and Balaram's failure to recognize Arjuna in his disguise were both arrangements of Krishna in order to enjoy his transcendental pastimes. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti identifies the festival as the annual Ratha Yatra for Lord Vishnu on the occasion of his rising from mystic sleep at the end of Chaturmasya. And finally, as stated more than once directly in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam, Subhadra's parents are Vasudeva and Devaki. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.